They finished 16th to take over the lead in the Classic Car Cup. In Division 2, the drivers were equally as spread across the leaderboard, including Ben Mushemi and Evans Wanda, who were having a disastrous rally. The N10 has given Ben problems all year, making each event a marathon. And after a host of frustrating breakdowns, they were relieved that they reached the finish in 20th. Faring only slightly better were Alfir and Tinu Khan. Pre-event problems with the car resulted in them not having time to recce the route, and they were running on Baldev Chaga's notes, which didn't always suit the speed at which they drive.
He actually uses a halda, and I call the distances just out of my head. I don't really use a halda, so I'm having a problem with that on the 1.1s and things because it's really 1.1. Yeah, so slowing down from that, I'm slowing down a bit early. Yeah, but now
they were well off their usual pace, and finishing 17th was disappointing. By comparison, Anwar Pandya and Oliver Verlaque were having a good outing. The N10 has been a reluctant finisher in recent events, but after the dry spell, it was all going well for a change. Anxious to finish, Anwar was not driving 100% in favor of getting the car to the end, and it paid off. Hoping to have broken the jinx, they finished 11th. Syed Hamad and Victor Okundi were amongst the 5 crews who had made the long journey from the coast. To make it worthwhile, they planned to take the Division 2 honours, but a misfire put paid to that, and they were forced to accept second. They were too cautious through the Godsbridge section, losing out on 9th place by 1 second.
It's my first time I've done such a section, so I think next time it'll be easier. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing about going to all the different rallies.
Now I'm gaining the experience.
Out in front in Division 2 were Anthony Nielsen and Mike Ogwapit. Although they claimed to have been driving cautiously, they underestimated their pace and were surprised at the times they were setting, even winning Stage 9 outright. They have plans for a podium place before the year is out, and will only have to call on some of the reserve to achieve it. On this one, they were 4th.
You know, I think in the beginning of the season it gave us a bit of a scare when we rolled the car, and you know, that put me back a little bit. And then, you know, the whole aim is to try and finish without breaking the car. I think now we're trying to see if we can do that more consistent.
Despite finishing 17th, Alfir Khan still retains the lead on the division table. Anthony Nielsen moves up a place to 2nd, and Anwar Pandya appears for the first time. The service park was located exactly on the equator at the Mogotio Tourist Center, where visitors could see for themselves that water does flow in different directions depending upon which side of the line they stand. Later in the day, the Globe Monument would provide a befitting platform for the finished celebrations, but for now, the main attraction for the service crews was to keep the cars in good enough shape to get there. First to leave for the final loop of the sections were Carl Tindu and Tim Jessup. Out on the stages, they continued to push hard in the hope of at least gaining a podium place. They recovered some of the time they'd lost, but it was all for a lost cause when first the steering column dropped into Carl's lap and then the turbo blew. For the 3rd time this season, they returned home on the end of a tow rope. Everyone behind moved up a place, including Azar Anwar and Julius Gige, who were anyway giving one last push to reclaim the earlier time they'd lost. The car was still not handling well, but they'd come to terms with it and eventually moved up 2 places to finish 7th. The battle for the top 3 places was far from over. whilst Kavanagh had the advantage, only 20 seconds separated Baldev Chaga and Lee Rose, turning the final 50 kilometers into a flat-out race. The rally coincided with Baldev Chaga's 5th wedding anniversary, and he'd only been granted leave from the celebrations on the understanding that he would return with a winning trophy. He was now fighting hard to keep the promise, but could not match the pace of the others, and began hoping his wife would accept flowers and chocolate instead. Having done what he could, he was forced to accept 3rd.
I don't know what to do now after the rally. I think we're 3rd. We pushed really hard in the last loop, but still Lee managed to get ahead, I think. And so, no, I'm in trouble when I get home.
Lee Rose and Piers Dakins were equally as committed, confident they could close in on Kavanagh. It was just a case as to whether the remaining stage miles were enough. They did gain 31 seconds, which was enough to overtake Baldev Chaga for 2nd, but Kavanagh was out of reach. The decision to drive on the puncture early in the day had cost them the rally win.
We dropped about 5 minutes to Al, so to be a minute off him at the end, I'm happy. So we were 4 minutes quicker. Ultimately, if we'd stopped to change the puncture, we'd have got the win. But we weren't to know. But I'm happy.
As Alistair Kavanagh and Gavin Lawrence tackled the closing stages, they knew their lead was being challenged, but they didn't bow to the pressure. Whilst they did gain time, their pace was quick, and they stayed ahead to take the rally win by just over a minute.
If we were going to win it, we had to really go and push, and that's what we did. My intention was just to, obviously, to win if we can, but to get points and just try and put a bit of a gap on, take the pressure off towards the end of the season. We're doing that slowly. So,
as Alistair Kavanagh and Gavin Lawrence climbed the global monument, they made history, being the first to celebrate a rally win while straddling the equator. This was Alistair Kavanagh and Gavin Lawrence's 2nd consecutive win, bringing to an end all the years of bad luck. There were new names in the top 10 that are beginning to mould the future of the championship, with the current leaders already coming under threat. 23 cars eventually finished with the times well spread, especially amongst the newcomers who made up the tail end. Kavanagh's win now places him well out in front on the championship board. Baldev Chaga dislodges Ian Duncan for 2nd, and Lee Rose moves up from 6th to 4th.